Here we go, Vikings fans. What's going on? Welcome into Vikings Now by Chat Sports as the Minnesota Vikings schedule for 2026 has been leaked, and we'll be diving into it on today's show. But today's show is presented by PrizePicks, and make sure you guys use code HMA and get hooked up with $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. But the Minnesota Vikings, they're starting off the season against the Green Bay Packers in Week 1. Now, I think the number one storyline from this game, we'll dive into most of these games in more in depth here on the second half of today's show. But the Green Bay Packers game, Kyler Murray versus former head coach Jonathan Gannon. The Packers lost Jeff Hafley to the Miami this past offseason, but now Jonathan Gannon is their defensive coordinator. Also, the Vikings probably won't be going against Micah Parsons in this game, so that's huge. But then you got the Bears Week 2 noon game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road, Miami Dolphins Week 4, and they travel down to New Orleans in Week 5. Bye week coming Week 6 again, so it's back-to-back years in a row. The Vikings have a bye week during Week 6, but after the bye week, you get the Colts at home, so that should be a very winnable game for the Vikings. But then you're in Detroit against the Lions in Week 8, and this is a tough stretch for the Vikings. You're in Detroit, and you got the Bills at home on Monday night, and then a short week after playing a very good Buffalo team. Well, then you got to travel to Green Bay and take on the Green Bay Packers in a pretty big-time game in Week 10 of the season. But then you're in Mexico City, Sunday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers, and two gettable games at home against the Falcons and Panthers in Weeks 12 and 13. But then back-to-back primetime games for the Minnesota Vikings. Week 14, they're on the road traveling Thursday Night Football against the New England Patriots, and then Week 15 versus the Lions. Sunday Night Football, that's going to be a massive game. And I like how the Vikings schedule is set up here. I think the Commanders at home, Vikings should be 5-point favorites in that one. Then you're playing the New York Jets, which the only thing I don't like about this, if the Vikings are a playoff team this upcoming year, having to go play on MetLife before the start of the playoffs, I mean, with the injury history that field has, I'm going to be absolutely terrified of that game. But then you close it out with the Chicago Bears at home. So we'll be going more in depth on each of these games here in a second, but this is why you guys hit that subscribe button. We post daily videos around your Minnesota Vikings. We got watch parties for every single one of the games that we just dove into. Watch parties here on the channel, weekly live shows as well. Then anytime we get pressing Vikings news, no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I'm at, I got you guys with the video. Then obviously we cover the latest rumors here on the channel. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button today. Lock us in as your go-to Vikings YouTube channel. Today's show is made possible by SeatGeek. And if you're trying to go to a Vikings game this year, use SeatGeek and save 10% off your next set of tickets by using code CHAT10. Whether it's a Vikings home game or a Vikings road game, you can get tickets on SeatGeek. You can go to the Packers versus Vikings game for Week 1 of the season, and it's not just football games either. They have concert, baseball games, whatever it is. SeatGeek has you covered. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. They also have tickets for the Vikings at Niners game in Mexico City, and also Game 6 for the Timberwolves taking on the Spurs tomorrow night. If you guys want to get tickets for that, it's a good time to do so. Just use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets on SeatGeek. And, of course, I have a code for you guys. Just make sure you guys use that code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code CHAT10. Make sure you click the link in the comment section and description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. But a massive thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's edition of Vikings Now. All right, so overall, the Vikings schedule is shaking out like this. So they have 9 home games this year, which is obviously an advantage, and you got 8 away games. Now, also one of those road games, being in Mexico City versus the Niners, they have a very big Mexican fan base, so that still will probably be a home game for the Niners, but I expect a lot of purple in the stadium for that one, and then 4 primetime games for the Minnesota Vikings, and again, a early bye week for the Vikes, back-to-back seasons. Coming in Week 6, a little shocked that they didn't put the bye week after the Mexico City trip, so that's something to monitor during the season for the Vikings. But let's just go game by game here, give you guys some thoughts, and then I'll eventually give you guys my top 5 games here on the Vikings schedule. But Week 1, it's going to be a bloodbath. I mean, I can't wait. Getting the Green Bay Packers Week 1, U.S. Bank Stadium, Jonathan Gannon taking on his former quarterback in Kyler Murray, and also huge advantage for the Minnesota Vikings. Micah Parsons will probably not be available for this game. So you're getting the Packers at home. No Micah. Kyler versus Jonathan Gannon. And also the Vikings offense this year, it will relatively look similar, but I think there could be a couple wrinkles that KOC will throw out there for week 1. I can't wait for this game. I think this is a very gettable game for the Minnesota Vikings. If you could start 1-0 in the division, 1-0 against the Packers, and 1-0 just to start the entire season, big time spot here for Minnesota. Then week 2 at the Chicago Bears, that's going to be their home opener. Chicago starts off on the road against the Carolina Panthers. So the Vikings, they'll be walking into an absolute bloodbath. Bears fans are going to be, loud and rowdy in that game, but how awesome would it be if the Vikings won week 1, beating the Packers, and you go on the road to play Chicago, which also I like that this is early on in the season, so you're not playing in the cold later on in the year, but you have a chance to make all those Bears fans leaving that stadium very upset. So I love that for the Vikes. Then week 3, sneaky fun game here in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. Overall, first 3 weeks for the Vikings schedule, pretty challenging. Like, there are no cakewalks during the first 3 weeks. Like, the Packers at home, anything can happen. On the road against the Bears, anything can happen, especially on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Honestly, I think the game that concerns me the most is Tampa, because you're coming off 2 divisional games. You'll be locked in, ready to go for both of those. But then having to go down to Florida in that heat early on in September, like, that could be a trap game for the Minnesota Vikings. We got a Florida team coming up north in the Miami Dolphins. That's probably a guaranteed win for the Minnesota Vikings, unless Malik Willis can really, pull a rabbit out of his hat. But I don't think that's going to happen. So first 4 weeks, I think the Vikings got a good chance to start off, 3-1. If not 2-2, which wouldn't be bad. But then week 5, you travel to New Orleans. This will be Justin Jefferson's second game in New Orleans, his home state. So that's going to be a fun one. Saints fans think they're going to be good this year. Playing a poverty division, I think they're probably going to get rolled week 1 against the Lions. I can see the Vikings walking into that stadium and rolling them week 5. Then you got week 6, early bye week again for the Minnesota Vikings. Don't necessarily love that. Would prefer that later on in the year, but it does set up a very winnable game. Week 7 versus Indianapolis Colts. Having them at home, I think that's huge. Coming off a bye week, like, even at the Vikings at this time, like, they're 3-2 going to the bye week. You come out of the bye week with the Colts at home, that should be a very gettable game. Hopefully move to 4-2, and then that sets up an absolute bloodbath of a matchup against the Detroit Lions on the road. And that's why I like the NFC North. It's so awesome being a fan of, any of these teams, because every single divisional game this season feels like it's the Super Bowl. And that's why playing in a great division is awesome. But then week 8 against the Lions on the road, and then the Vikings, tough stretch here. You go week 8 against the Lions in Detroit, and then you follow it up, Bills, Monday Night Football at home. If you guys remember, last time the Vikings played the Bills at home, it was Josh Allen's first career start. Who did he jump over? Anthony Barr. I'll never forget that. I was actually watching that game. Went to college with some Bills fans. They were my roommates. I remember we were watching that. Vikings, 17.5-point favorites in that game. Ended up losing. Kirk Cousins was awful. Not good memories about the Bills, but also it sets up a rematch from the game of the year back in 2022, that game in Buffalo. But then week 9, Packers on the road. So you go in Detroit, Bills at home, Packers on the road. That is a tough stretch for the Minnesota Vikings. And then on top of that, you have to go to Mexico City. So if the Vikings are on a 3-game losing streak at that time of the season, then you got to go to go to Mexico City and take on the Niners Sunday Night Football. That's gonna be a tough spot for the Minnesota Vikings. But hopefully you get a bounce back win week 12 against the Falcons at home. That's gonna be a very winnable game. Get some revenge from this past season as the Falcons walked into your building. Week 2 Sunday Night Football and completely pants this Vikings offense. So hopefully they're able to bounce back then. And then another winnable game week 13 against the Carolina Panthers. Vikings, bare minimum, should go 3-1 against the NFC South. Maybe you lose in Tampa, but the Falcons, Panthers at home, those got to be wins. And then the Saints on the road, that's got to be a win as well. But then a fun game, week 14 against the Patriots, Thursday Night Football. This will be December 10th, so it's going to be cold there in Foxborough. Now, a lot of questions. Kyler Murray, can he play in the cold? We're going to have to see that here on full display week 14 against the Pats. But taking on Drake May, team that was representing the AFC in the Super Bowl next season, could be a statement win for the Vikings. But then you have a mini bye week setting up an at-home game, Sunday Night Football against the Detroit Lions, with a bunch of ramifications. This game will have a lot on the line for the Minnesota Vikings. Around the same time last year when the Vikings knocked the Lions out of playoff contention at home on Christmas. So a very similar game there on Sunday Night Football. Then week 16 versus the Commanders, very winnable game. That should be a game that we all mark on the calendar as an automatic win for the Minnesota Vikings. I was taking a look at the roster. Not great. Durante Jones revenge game, though, former pass game coordinator for the Vikes, now the DC, calling the shots for Washington. Then he traveled to New York to take on the New York Jets at MetLife Stadium. Don't love the Vikings playing at MetLife this late in the year, but it is what it is. Also going to be a cold game there, so hopefully that's a Brian Flores masterclass. But then you ended up, or you ended all with the Chicago Bears at home, Week 18. Who knows if that's for the division? Who knows if that's for a potential wild card spot for the Vikes? But I do like the NFL in these Week 18 games, leaning into the divisional games because no matter what, we'll have at least one division come down to it. It might even be like how it was 2 years ago against the Lions, where it was for the number one seed for the division. So Viking schedule, we'll unpack it even more here. But coming up, we'll get you guys the Vikings preseason schedule and my top 5 games. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks, and the playoffs are here for basketball. Baseball is underway, and it's time to cash in with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. App is really easy to use. Just got to pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. And here's a lineup I'm rolling with for the entire season. We're going to take the more on Jackson Dart passing touchdowns set at 19.5. I think Dart and the Giants offense are going to be pretty damn good this season. So we're going to take the more on his passing touchdowns. And Dak Prescott going to take the less on his passing yards. It's a pretty high number set at 3,950.5. So we're going to take the less on that. And then Jalen Hurts, 9.5 rushing touchdowns. I think they're going to be using the tush push less this season. So we're going to take the less on that. But that's a $20 lineup. Pays out $120 if you end up winning. They also have a social feeds feature where you guys can share prize picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. That includes me and producer Dylan, so you guys can follow us on Prize Picks, tailor our picks or fade, and get the picks before they even get posted on the show. And Prize Picks now has early payouts, so if your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. But the new user offer, download the Prize Picks app today with the link in the comments and description and use code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you put your first $5 lineup. That's code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, so the Vikings preseason schedule, this is still not officially official, but it's looking like it will be this. So week 1, they're going to be in New York taking on the Giants. Probably we'll see Jackson Dart. Probably we'll see Kyler Murray, so that'll be a fun game there. Week 1, then you take on the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens aren't necessarily a boring preseason team, so that one will probably be a snooze fest. But then week 3 at Denver will probably be a snooze fest as well. KOC and Sean Payton don't play any other starters during the preseason, so we'll see a lot of backups in that game. Maybe a little Carson Wentz in Denver, maybe a little Max Brosmer as well. But let's talk about my top 5 games here. So we're starting off with week 1. This is the game. I don't know if it's just because it's week 1, but I'm looking, obviously most forward to it. And I think just the two storylines, for the Vikings in this one. You get the Packers without Micah Parsons at home. Kyler Murray versus Jonathan Gannon, and also the Vikings back in 2022 when they opened up against the Packers, US Bank Stadium, KOC's first game. If you guys remember, Justin Jefferson had more yards in that first half than the entire Packers offense. So hopefully we'll get hopefully we'll get that same thing here in week 1, but can't wait for that game. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then a sneaky game. Like I could have put all 5 divisional games here, but I wanted to switch it up. Week 14 against the Patriots. I don't know if this is just because I've been talking smack to our Patriots guy here at Chat Sports and Brett Alper over and over again, but Thursday night football late in the year, Patriots and Vikings probably will both have good records. Like that game's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't wait for that. And then week 15 against the Lions, Sunday night football. I mean, who knows what could be on the line there? Like that game could be absolutely unbelievable. Like that could be cinema for the NFL. Sunday night, US Bank Stadium, crowd is rocking and rolling. Kyler Murray indoors playing the Lions offense indoors. It could be a potential shootout, but Brian Flores got the better of Jared Goff in that Lions offense this past season, so I like that. And then week 2 at the Bears. Now, I could have put week 18 here, but you never know what's going to be on the line. At least week 2 we'll know, like Bears home opener, Vikings, hopefully they're 1-0, trying to go to Chicago, go 2-0 in the division, but that's going to be a big-time game for the Vikes. Like, especially if you lose that first one to the Green Bay Packers. You have to go travel to Chicago, play a high-flying Bears offense, warm weather, that time of the year in Chicago. Like Brian Flores, like that defense is going to have to be humming, and hopefully Kyler Murray is playing some good football then, and the Vikings offense can keep pace with that high-flying Bears offense. And then week 9, Buffalo Bills, Monday Night Football, all eyes on Minneapolis, so it's going to be fun. I can't wait. Now, also, I want to end this show with a message. I am sorry to all the diehard Minnesota sports fans. That loss last night to the Minnesota Wild. I'm not a diehard Wild fan. I'm just a Vikings fan. That had to have ripped so many hearts out. You're up 3-0 in the game. You're up 3-1 with about 4 minutes left in that one. You give up the lead, and it just literally just keeps on hammering home. Like Minnesota, the most cursed sports city in the entire country. Like, it's undisputable now. Like, they have one championship in the last, I think, I'm not sure how many runs. I saw some stat about it, but it is the worst by far. The Twins, they're the Twins. The Vikings, obviously, you know how cursed they are. 7th best winning percentage of all time. No Super Bowls. And then the Wild and the Timberwolves just kind of break your hearts every single year. So hopefully something changes here. One team's going to have to change the vibes in Minnesota, and hopefully it's the 2026 Minnesota Vikings. But you guys let me know, what game are you most excited about? For me, Week 1, baby. Give me the Green Bay Packers. No Micah Parsons. Kyler, Jonathan Gannon going to be a huge storyline in that one. But you guys chime in down below. Now also hit that subscribe button today. We'll keep you guys posted with everything around your Minnesota Vikings. We'll catch you guys next time. As always, SKOL Vikes.